Okay, people. So I am joined today by Jack Spring. Jack, the director of the new Grimsby set heist film, 3 Day Millionaire. Hey, man, thank you so much for stopping by. How you doing?
Kevin, absolute pleasure, mate. Absolute. Thank you so much for having me, mate. Yeah, really, really good. We've got the world premiere coming up tomorrow, so it's all rather busy, and yeah, lots of fun. It's like I'm going to go to bed tonight, and it's going to be like Christmas Eve for a kid, and I am very excited. Yeah, it's going to be a great night.
Well, Jack, man, that's really because this is your fifth feature, right? You've done a documentary, done a number of short films, but you're still feeling that kind of that buzz on premiere day. That's golden, man.
Yeah, it's feature film number 2, and then I've done like a TV show and a documentary. So yeah, it's like this kind of project. And yeah, I mean, it's Grimsby is where all my family are from. So I spent a lot of time here as a kid, and kind of know the town like the back of my hand. So when I got sent a script that was based in the area, all about the town's kind of history and culture and kind of proud identity, it was pretty obvious we should do it. And yeah, it's been a long, hard journey. It's been kind of 5 years of work, really. And yeah, tomorrow night it goes from being this kind of project that your little kind of clique know about to being spread all over the cinema floor like a messy afterbirth. And yeah, I cannot wait. It's very exciting.
All right, so what was the big thing that pulled you to this film, other than the Grimsby aspect of it?
Yeah, there are so many things, man. Like the characters, first and foremost. Like I love big kind of hyper real characters. Like I absolutely love them. And people can watch Weatherspoons for 94 minutes. Never mind dramatic situations with other interesting people. And the dialogue was so great, and the music. Like we got the Waterboys have done our soundtrack. So we got some cracking tunes in there, and they were kind of all in the script as well. And yeah, so many things. Like I've always said, if I don't make a 9 out of 10 film with this script, I've messed up. And so I'm hopeful people love it. And yeah, there's just so much going for it. As I said, there's a long fight to get it made, but I'm so glad we did, and I'm so glad I saw the script and got sent it by the writer. And it's just brilliant. It's got bits of everything as well. Like it's got the comedy, it's got the high stuff, it's got political bits. It's sweet, it's sad. It's like a pick and mix of joy.
Afterbirth and a pick and mix, right? It's definitely interesting ways of describing this, man.
I should be the writer, shouldn't I? Crikey, I've got away with words.
Right, what for you? Like, what was probably the hardest part of putting this, bringing this to life?
Yeah, it's always the same answer for me, and it's raising the money. Because I've done like hundreds of shorts, and obviously a lot of projects since the shorts kind of time. I don't find directing, it is challenging, but it's challenging in a way that I do so much homework. Like I do 6 months of homework, and we rehearse for 2 weeks. So by the time you're actually on set, it's actually quite fun. Like a lot of decisions have been made, and you're just kind of using a little bit of intuition kind of sprinkled on top for them, little things that you need on the day. But raising the cash, I started trying to raise money for this in 2018, I want to say, maybe earlier. And it's £1 million plus budget. And then we went from doing Destination Dewsbury, the previous movie that was 150k budget, to raising more than £1 million. So it's a big step, and you're kind of almost starting again with your investor network, because as brutal as it sounds, people that can put in 5-10k that are really helpful for Destination Dewsbury, a lot of them put in their 5-10k again, but you've kind of got to find people that can put in $250,000, $500,000 kind of chunks.
Yeah.
And I didn't grow up in a kind of money world. I had a loving upbringing, but it wasn't one kind of filled with excess cash. And yeah, so for me, from my kind of background and kind of lack of sort of finance side experience, was very much kind of coming at it from a director until the first film where I kind of had to learn to raise the money. It's definitely the raising the cash. It was a long slog, and we tried in London for like 2 or 3 years to find the money, and then the penny dropped that obviously we need to find people in Grimsby, that kind of, as well as like the idea of the financial returns and the kind of script, also care about what it's doing for Grimsby as a place, which is showing it extremely positively and hopefully changes perception of the town, across the UK and abroad. And so yeah, it's always raising the cash. Once you raise the cash, you get to do your job. There's kind of no other, I think, actors and directors, there's no other kind of group of people employment wise that have to work so hard just to work. Like, it's mental. So raising the money, finding the cash, but we ended up with a collective of wonderful investors, every single one of them bar one from Grimsby.
Okay.
A host of corporate sponsors. We raised a good chunk of the budget from companies that supported the film and sponsored us. So without them guys, I wouldn't be speaking to you today. We wouldn't have a film. So yeah, they're the key to it. They let the train leave the station.
And when like from the first film to this, with your funders, is this a kind of like, do you try and keep it as an ongoing situation, so maybe they're on board all the way through, kind of thing, when they see what you can do, you know what I mean, and the return they get, do you find they stay on board?
Yeah, so we set up a production company for this one. So yeah, a good percentage of our investors are kind of in the production company long term, and have kind of committed to many more films after this, which is great. And it's just a massive show of confidence from them. And again, I'm just extremely grateful. So there's not many filmmakers that get that opportunity. I'm not naive. Like, I know how hard it is to raise cash, and I know, especially when you're not from the ultra wealth kind of background, it's even harder. And there's not many filmmakers that have got into film through the creative side because they love making films, that are either taught how to raise money or lucky enough to stumble upon them people that can back them. And our guys, our production company, Shush Films, and we've got a team of wonderful investors there, and a great team, development guys, and my producer Giles. And yeah, it's just a really, I genuinely, it sounds a bit cheesy, but I genuinely wake up every day very aware of how lucky I am, and it's not an opportunity that I'm going to kind of cock up, hopefully.
No, it doesn't sound cheesy at all, man. It doesn't sound cheesy at all. Like, when you got the script and you're looking at it and you're planning this out, did you automatically know the shots that you wanted to start the film? To bring people in?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the script is super visual, so when you read it, and especially because I knew Grimsby, I knew kind of, from the first read where I wanted to shoot everything.
Right.
I think any kind of creative, particularly reading a script, can sort of visualize it to an extent. But then again, going back to the amount of homework I do about a month and a half of storyboarding, and then kind of basically 3 months of script analysis, basically working out how to direct the actors. So on the storyboarding part, your perception kind of slightly changes, because it just becomes a kind, from your kind of automatic intuition or assumption that's in your head when you read it, and then you actually spend time drawing it out and making sure it'll work. It kind of gets retranslated again. But then, it's a shame I can't show you some of my drawings, because they are basically snowmen, with not much else. They essentially help me establish, whether it's going to be a close up, a two shot, a wide, the camera movement, stuff like that. And then, then I hand it kind of, we come up with a shot list with the DOP based off them storyboards and their input. And, from then I have literally, maybe not nothing to do with the visuals, but I couldn't tell you how to turn on a camera, where to put lights to make it look pretty. My storyboards are, my framing is set, so I know, where they're going to be in frame and what kind of shot it is. But apart from that, I can't take any credit for how pretty 3 Day Millionaire looks. Andy Roger, the DOP, he had a fantastic team with him, and I'm very much not despite having a bit of a kind of distinctive style, or like a kind of a set style. Now I've done a couple of films that kind of runs true between both. I have almost zero technical knowledge when it comes to cameras, lighting, sound. I very much kind of see myself as the conductor of the orchestra, and they all play the music. They know how to play the instruments, and then I know how to play the actors. I'm kind of head of department of them. That's my kind of craft, as well as being the conductor of the orchestra. So yeah, it kind of all falls together through a lot of kind of people. But yeah, that was a very long-winded answer to a very simple question. But yeah,
no.
You have a bit of an idea when you read it.
Yeah, no. Look, you laid it out nicely, right? It's good to get those different insights into things. You know what I mean? Because it's just there has to be a level of trust when you do this. But like, because you saying, I mean, not having the whole technical knowledge of cameras and lighting and all of that. So you're now relying on these people to kind of buy into your vision and then help bring that to life. Like, how do you grow that for you?
I think it kind of all comes back to your homework, right? Because like if you turn up to set and you don't really know what you want, or you can't set that direction, then you're going to lose respect pretty quickly. Especially being young. Like I'm only 26, so like if you're not prepared, you're going to lose people on day one. But because I have done that homework, and I know kind of to my level of input that I should have on shots exactly what I want. It kind of happens pretty smoothly. I think on this one in particular, because it was Grimsby as well, I was pretty adamant that when people arrived, I took them for a little tour of Grimsby, showed them where we were shooting, showed them all the kind of important landmarks. And, I don't think my love for Grimsby is at all missing from the film. It's kind of someone described it as a love letter to Grimsby the other day. And I think that's kind of, without that being at the forefront of my mind, probably accurate. So I think they probably bought into the kind of my love for the story we were telling as well.
Well, yeah, I think like the visual tone of the film definitely just, there's sometimes you watch something and you'd be like, I mean, the acting is good, the shots are good, but I don't know, it feels a bit too flashy, right? Or sometimes you think it feels a bit too subdued, but this felt right, just right. And I will say as well, this is one of the, like, oftentimes when we have a club scene, like you watch it and you're like, I have never been in a club that empty, right? These people got way too much room to be able to dance, to do it. Like this actually felt like you're in a club, right?
Yeah, man.
So I like the attention to detail.
Thank you. Yeah, like ultimately these things are printed forever, right? So you get it right, and like even the help that we had in the town was pretty miraculous. Like all them people in that club scene, apart from my kind of main actors, none of them were paid. There were extras that came along, gave their day up and kind of waited 8 hours to have a 10-minute boogie on the dance floor to no music because that was back at the sound. I think we did actually play music that day because but yeah, like I think that the film's kind of visual, like the town kind of like it's all that kind of red brick ex-industrial kind of look throughout the whole town. That's why I think Grimsby as a place to make films is like excellent because it's so consistent. Like usually, like the first film, Destination Dewsbury, we shot just outside of Leeds, and there because Leeds is kind of some of it's modern and some of it's built up, and some of it's kind of studenty and some of it's kind of still like a load of terrace housing and stuff. It's very like inconsistent. And I think like production value wise for a film, you always want a consistent look throughout, right? And Grimsby had that. So I think like the color palette and the way it looked was kind of, we were led down a very organic path from what was here, and then Andy Roger added his magic on top, and yeah, I mean the whole thing looks great. I can't take credit for it, but it does look, it looks amazing. Them guys did a truly miraculous job, and yeah, I mean the whole crew, man. Like, look, I spent a little bit of time last night just thinking about it, and like on the day we wrapped, I cried my eyes out. Not because I was sad that I'd spent 5-6 weeks with these wonderful bunch of people, and that was it. And I had such a good time. The amount of talent that was lent to me by these guys, was unbelievable. And yeah, man, I get quite emotional about it because it's a lot of trust and money and time and people's lives put into this. And yeah, I hope we do them proud tomorrow night when they'll get to see it.
Well, I think it's a good thing, really, because as you said, look, I think it's the passion that we have for certain things that can bring people on board, that buy people into your vision, right? And so if you weren't that emotional about it, I don't think you'd be able to have got this done. You wouldn't have got all of these people like wanting a ride with you, man.
Yeah, I mean, you give up after not getting it financed within a few weeks, like, and yeah, like even I told this story the other day to a friend, James Burrows, who plays Curly, the lead. I went up to the day we met. He was interested in doing the part. Kind of pretty much wanted to do it. So I went up and met his family. I went to his family home and met his family and took him to watch Grimsby against Chesterfield. To kind of show him what. Like that very day, to show him what kind of Grimsby meant to the folks that are from here. It's one of the places where, I think, I love living in London, because there's lots of different people, and I think that's wonderful. Grimsby, is everyone kind of looks and sounds the same, and I don't. I'm not saying that's a positive for the town at all, but I think something that comes from that is that there is far more of a sense of community because like instinctively people that all look and sound the same. You don't have that kind of division that you might have in London. Like growing up in London, I never felt like a kind of like a Londoner in a way. Like you don't have that kind of sense of strict identity that I think people up here being from Grimsby means it's so much more part of your identity. Kind of probably because of that, and yeah, like the passion that these people have for their town, and even with all the slating that it's had, by everyone, and the previous film that shall not be mentioned, that used the town's name, yeah, like it's about time someone gave the town some love, and not even love, just telling the proper story. Because there's so much story here, man. Like this used to be the world's largest fishing port. Like just the stories that I went and met fishermen and still talk to them, and there's some of them are coming to the premiere tomorrow that were the original 3 Day Millionaires that went out to sea for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, came back, got rat-ass for 3 days and went back out. And some of the stories from sea and from land, just remarkably brilliant. And I hope we have opened the door to the film industry for Grimsby in a way, because there's so much more here. We've just scratched the surface, and it's a wonderful place full of wonderful people, and I love it. And yeah, even though my accent is not that of Grimsby, it kind of all my dad's side of the family are from here, so it kind of, I feel like it makes up a larger part of my identity than it perhaps should. But that's because I have a lot of love for the place.
That makes sense, because I think the as you said, look, London is so big, and you get so many different types of people, types of food, types of culture, all of that kind of thing. But you've got like North Londoners hating South Londoners and just that kind of thing. But then North London, you get that split, because when you let's just say football, right? You got Arsenal, Tottenham, both North London do not like each other, right? You know what I mean? And so it's just, there's not that say, as you said, that community feel
Yeah,
because of that segmentation. But when you go
yeah,
to a place like Grimsby, Hull, you know what I mean, those sort of spots, there's a different feel to it all.
yeah, yeah, like 100%. Like I think, and I think it's because collectively these towns have been through quite a lot of hardship as well. You know, like you look at almost any ex-industrial northern town that at whatever point had its industry pulled and
Yeah.
sort of struggled to, you know, like Grimsby struggled for a long time to find its new identity. You know, like that echoes. You know, it's kind of almost, this isn't just a film about Grimsby. It's kind of story that's echoed throughout almost everywhere outside of London, right? Particularly the north. And
Mm.
I think in all of them places, you know, whenever I've gone there or stayed there or worked there or lived there, you do get far more of a sense of, you know, we're all together in this that you probably don't get in London, you know. But I'm not saying, you know, like I absolutely love London. You know, if I ever accidentally have kids, I'd raise them in London, because you know you get to experience lots of different people, lots of different cultures, lots
Mm.
of different ways of thinking. You know, like you just learn about the human race in a far more kind of wider spectrum. You know, and it's a great city. But yeah, you don't have that collective sense of togetherness as an entire place, really. That's probably because it's like 8 cities crammed together, like the size of it. You
Yeah.
know, like it's a mega city, and Grimsby is a town. But yeah, you know, there's no right or wrong. Each have their pros and cons. But yeah, it's definitely something that's echoed throughout a lot of places, rather than just Grimsby, I think.
Mm. No, definitely, man, definitely. Now, I read that your dad got you into film, right? That
Yeah.
when he's showing you film and stuff, were heist films a big part of that whole intro from your dad?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really like, I think I'm probably again a little bit unique as a filmmaker because I didn't really get into films by watching films. Like he made these little stop motion animations with us in the garden.
Ah,
Like I remember he got
okay.
laid off. He got laid off work for a little while, and instead of playing football manager like most dads probably would when the kids were at school, he spent all day kind of prepping these little stop motion animations, and we'd like literally print, you know, make a little character in Microsoft Paint, print it off, cut it out, find a stick in the garden, glue it. You know, and he had a very early digital camera, and you know, we'd take a picture, move it slightly, take pictures like stop motion animation, and shove it in Windows Movie Maker, and made these little animations that were like, we made like David and Goliath when I was probably like 6, maybe younger, and we did all, you know, like all the time we did these little things, and they were great. And then kind of, you know, by the age of 13, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but it all came
Mm.
through. You know, I'm still bad for it. I still don't watch many films, and it's not that I don't like them. It's just because if I'm not spending 2 hours trying to get one made, I feel bad. You know, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's a
yeah.
bit like it sounds weird, but I describe it a bit like, you know, people like watching F1, but they don't necessarily enjoy driving. You know, like
Yeah.
no, the other way around. They like driving, don't like F1. Something like that. I've used that analogy
Okay.
correctly before, but that doesn't make much
I
sense
mean,
when I say
I
that out
think it works either way,
loud.
you know?
Yeah. But like, it's not like I don't enjoy film. Obviously, I love films, but yeah, like I, you know, even growing up as a kid, there were definitely certain films. Like I remember seeing Snatch, and you know, I remember watching the first half of This Is England and getting sent to bed because I think Dad knew what was coming in the second half, and it wasn't until years later that I realised why I was sent to bed. And you know, things like even like, you know, into my teens, like stuff like Layer Cake with obviously Colominian, who's in 3 Day, which is really cool.
Mm.
So yeah, they're definitely them kind of. I don't like using the word gangster because that kind of gives the wrong impression of 3 Day. It's not. But them kind of, you know, early Guy Ritchie stuff and that kind of sort of world and vibe, and just these like collectives of these really interesting characters doing something, you know, in a kind of stylized kind of, you know, way of storytelling. And yeah, I think, you know, I think throughout the film, you know, my influences are probably relatively clear. You know, people like Guy Ritchie, Edgar Wright, Shane Meadows, a
Mm.
little bit of Wes Anderson, you know, in there. And you know, I think I've always been quite wore my heart on my sleeve a little bit in my work in terms of them influences. yeah, like I kind of didn't approach it as a cinephile like most film directors do. I just love making them. So just worked out that you could do that for a living, and been lucky enough to have the help along the way to make that a reality.
Nice. And do you think you've found your distinct style yet, or are you just exploring what that could be?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's hard to answer. I heard in an interview Scorsese got asked something similar, and I think his answer rings true to me in that it's relatively hard to self-describe your own style. Is point one. Like, I know what it is. I can watch my films and be like, okay, there are the similarities. I like my symmetry. I like my camera movements for comedic effect. I like these kind of color palettes. Like, I know what I like. But then there's also a kind of another school of thought, and that kind of hyper stylized stuff belongs to the people like Guy Ritchie, Edgar Wright, with Anderson. There's also another school of thought that I probably subscribe to as well, in that the script needs to dictate the style to a pretty high degree. I did a TV pilot called Life in Non-League, and that was a mockumentary, and the way it was written, it was pretty obvious that was not my kind of film visual style, so we shot it in a kind of more traditional mockumentary sense, because my film style, if you like, or kind of my intuition on how to shoot it if it was a film just wouldn't have worked for script. So I think there's always that balance between what the script, how it's written, and your intuition as a director. And I think your intuition is often led by the script. We're working on other bits, and the next film isn't this kind of visual style at all, really, because it just doesn't work. So yeah, I think I'll always like things like symmetry and camera pans and quick editing, and but I think the style probably comes more non-visually, like that's the link throughout the films. Like, all of my stuff is kind of comedy with heart, like it's emotional, it's got a nice soundtrack. It's no longer than 94 minutes ever, because if I see a film that's longer than that, I ain't watching it. Unless it looks really good. So I think that kind of comedy with heart is the style that links all of what I've done and what I'm planning to do in the future together, rather than the visual as such.
Right. Okay, that makes sense, man. That makes sense. Yeah. I know I'm gonna have to let you go very shortly, which is a shame, because I'm enjoying the conversation, man.
This is great, man. We could chat like all night.
I've got so many freaking questions I want to ask you. I can't ask you. It's so infuriating.
They're proper questions, like I could chat all day.
Well, I'm happy about that, man. I'm happy about that. But yeah, you'll definitely have to stop by again for the next project, man.
Definitely.
But before I do have to let you go, because I don't, your PR people, like, I don't want them to blackball me. But where can people find out more about you and your work, and your new production company and this film, just in general?
Yeah,
let them know.
So yeah, this film-wise, Google 3 Day Millionaire. Bella's online, the website, the cinemas. It's in the, it's released on the 25th of November in cinemas and on digital at the same time. So almost anyone will be able to watch it on the 25th of November, which is very exciting. And then
is that Jack global as well?
So that is the UK release, and then the different territories are kind of staggered over the next year or so.
Right.
So I think it's out in America I think it's February 20th. It comes out in the States. And there's a few other territories that are still being lined up. So yes, it will be available kind of everywhere eventually. But yeah, UK release is the 25th of November, which is really exciting. Anyone that's interested in me, I'm at Jack Spring Film across the socials, because Jack Spring was taken. Tut. But yeah, I mean, just keep an eye on it. And I think anyone that likes anything like Snatch, This Is England, Train Spotting, The Full Monty, anything like that, will probably love 3 Day Millionaire. You know, I genuinely don't think there's a lot to not like about the film. It's kind of because it's a kind of crossover of so many different genres. There's kind of something for everyone, and it all kind of fits and works. And you know, it's my best bit of work that I've done by a million miles. And you know, I'm super happy with how it's come out. And you know, we're getting really good early reviews. And yeah, you know, we've done little audience test screenings and stuff, and it's just really exciting. You know, and it's a proper good indie movie. You know, it's the sort of movie that there should be kind of more of, proper British, you know, about this little corner of society in the UK and their style and their swagger and their, you know, the film's just got balls. And but it's also, you know, got everything else I would like to see in films. So if you're anything like me, you'll probably like it. If you're distinctly different, you might not, but I'm sure you'll find something in the film you like.
Hey, I will say I was definitely down to know how they were going to pull this off. You got me invested. Good. You know what I mean? You got me. I did kind of, the one thing I will pull you up on, no, my man. I don't think Curly said a nice thing to Gilly. I don't think at one point he said a nice, like, hey, I really like. It just seemed he was just like, you're terrible, you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I love you, Curly.
There's a whole story behind this, my man. There's a whole story. So one of the early cuts of there are loads of scenes where he confesses his love to her. They just got cut in the edit. So we had like the first cut of the movie came out at like an hour 50-ish, and I ain't having that. That's too long. And you know, this was like a rough cut, and you know, there was this whole there's loads of scenes like in the party at Budgie's house at the start, Budgie's mum's house. There's a whole scene where he's talking to camera, telling us how much he loves Gilly. You know, there's loads of bits that were cut. So yeah, I think there's one nice line when she's introduced. He says he's fancied her since school.
Yes.
I don't know whether that qualifies. I don't know whether that qualifies as nice. I don't know if I would say that if I was trying to chirp a young lady. But yeah, you're right. You got a fair point there. But maybe one day the director's cut as such will suffice, and your desires for more Gilly Curly love will be met. Maybe in 4 Day Millionaire. Who knows?
Maybe. Or hey, why don't you throw the deleted scenes on the DVD? You know what I mean? If we should
do, you know, we should. I'm sure that they will come out at some point. I'm sure, because there's plenty of them. Like, they were great, and it's always, you know, an interesting thing having a kind of, it's like cutting the arms off your firstborn infant. You know, you've got these wonderful scenes, but they're too big already, so they've got to be reduced in size. And yeah, and but yeah, it's always, you know, whittling down. It's a bit like an iceberg, not an iceberg, like an ice sculpture, where you start off and you've got this big block of material that you've gathered on set, and then you just chisel away until she's a fine-looking sculpture of an ice queen. And yeah, man. But yeah, maybe there's more Gilly Curly love if we get a sequel. I promise you that.
Okay.
Extra love, more kissing, so much kissing.
Nice. Good. Hey, I've really enjoyed the conversation, man, and I'm definitely looking forward to see what you do next. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I don't want your PR people coming for me, so I'm going to let you go. But people,
mate,
all the information, all the links for Jack and the film and the website, they're on the website. So go to the website and have fun. Follow Jack, because you know he's gonna have some more great things down the line. So hey, congrats on the film. I hope tomorrow goes well. It's been now, but I hope Grimsby premiere goes like a dream. I'm sure they're gonna love it. And yeah, good luck with everything that you're coming, and stop by again, man.
Absolute pleasure, Kevin. Thank you very much for your time, mate.
All right, man. Take it easy, Jack.
Cheers.